Good Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast, brought to you by Blue Water Climate Control. We appreciate you joining us today. Be sure to check out Blue Water Climate Control at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com, or you can check them out on Twitter at BlueH2O_climate. Check them out as we appreciate their continued support of the podcast. With Jesse Simonton, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along with us. Let's jump right into basketball. Rob, you said on the Tuesday podcast you weren't sure if this Tennessee team was going to win again. You thought it was a tough road to hoe for them. Certainly in Fayetteville, Arkansas, you thought that would be a tough environment. Arkansas plays really well. Tennessee's turnover problem has become almost an epidemic at this point. I mean, it's gone from being sort of an issue to the biggest issue surrounding this team, particularly offensively right now.
Well, it certainly wasn't the first half. I mean, they cleaned it up significantly after halftime, but by then, they were in a 13-point hole. They had five turnovers before they made 5 shots last night. They're down, 14-1, just bang out of the gate. Arkansas got rolling, which is exactly. Everything that happened last night is exactly what you don't want to happen on the road. You got to start well. You can't let the other team get rolling offensively, get the crowd into it. And Tennessee, let all that happen. They, Mason Jones just absolutely go off after they handled him in Knoxville. It's 37 points last night. I'll give you have to give Tennessee credit. They came back after halftime, showed some spark, but that was only the second time all year, Georgia being the other one, where I thought that they just showed up and just weren't ready out of the gate.
Is Vescovi, is that a freshman wall thing a little bit? Do you think it's a scouting report on him now? Obviously Arkansas was more prepared for him this go-around than they were the first time they played him. But, he struggled at Auburn. I know part of that was foul trouble, but he had turnovers. He's had turnover issues. I thought at Arkansas was probably the worst he has played, as ineffective as he has been. Is that just people having a scout on him now, you think, a little bit, or is that a little bit of the freshman wall that he's dealing with?
I think it's people having a scout on him, and I think it's him being the same age as, most as high school seniors right now, playing against, 22, 23-year-old guys. I just have a hard time being remotely critical of Vescovi, given what he was thrown into out of the gate. And he wasn't good last night, but I just think you have to sort of expect that's going to happen.
Better than James.
Yeah, he was, but that's just with everything that's been put on the kid's plate, I just have a hard time singling him out. Saying
I'm not trying to be critical of him. I'm just pointing out that that's a guy that they've given they've been forced to give the ball to, and he's had some good moments. It's just he's not played as well the last couple games in particular, with some timely turnovers, and looks like it's a little bit of a struggle. The defensive end's been a struggle for him. He's not the reason they lost last night. On Wednesday. I'm not putting it all on him, but if Tennessee's going to beat somebody down the stretch here, he has to play well. So my question is, why has there been some struggles by him the last few games?
I think it's one of the same. I think the freshman wall is them getting another look at him, getting another
second
scout.
Around of him.
Yeah, sure. You're able to make corrections.
And coaches, a different way. Coaches and players alike, leave that first game going, man, that little sucker can play.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, when they get ready the next time, he's a part of the game plan.
And this is, Rob has delved into this, whether podcast, on the site, TV, what have you. But there's also just a roster construction problem with this team, where you enter this 17 or however old he is kid into the mix mid-season, and he instantly becomes really only the second guy after Bowden that can actually hit a shot outside. James can ostensibly, but he really hasn't done it in the last month or 6 weeks. You look at the box score from last night or 2 nights ago. Bowden was the only guy that hit a 3.
Right.
No one else even really wants to attempt them besides Vescovi, so he doesn't have a ton of space there. He was 0 for 4, but that's just tough when you're relied on, mid-season to now. You're as literally as this supposed to be the second option in terms of spreading the floor.
Well, and I think what he's done is remarkable. I don't think that there's any question that it's pretty amazing for what he has done. I just you know, it seems like the game's a little harder for him right now, and I think it probably is because guys are you know, scouting on him differently and doing some things differently to him. But again, he's not the reason why this team lost a game or, you know, or anything like that. That's not fair to suggest. I'm not suggesting that in any way. I think it's turnovers on the offensive end. And again, I mean, in the first half against Arkansas, Rob, I didn't think they forced the ball inside enough.
No. And that's
they did in the second half, and they scored.
Quickly.
You know.
I mean, I thought Tennessee was going to lose by 40.
Right.
I mean, not 40, but just not, Arkansas was going to coast the whole way. And then they do get it inside, and, 6 or 7 minutes into the second half, it's 45-43. You're like, holy crap.
Right.
I didn't see that coming. And then, obviously, we saw what happened. I mean, Eric Musselman decided he was going to make Tennessee defend a high ball screen for the last 14 minutes of the game, and we all saw how that worked out.
Well, and that's the other question. I'm not an X's and O's basketball expert, but I mean, Auburn went to the high ball screen well, down the stretch, and their comeback, and then obviously to put that game away. Arkansas went to it effectively.
Let's go back to Kentucky in the last 4 minutes of that game.
They're going to see it. What's Tennessee's? I mean, without diving into X's and O's that are over my head, is it because you've got your bigs can't handle it? Are they not hedging it? I mean, what do you think they got to do differently on the high ball screen?
I mean, I think part of it is just personnel. But I mean, Yves Pons is, probably going to be an all-SEC defensive player. And I also think, as I mentioned in the war room, he's dealing with tendonitis in his knee. I think his lateral movement is not what it was. I mean, that's a bad. I mean,
his fundamentals were just bad on third. I mean, he's better than that. I mean, you go watch his footwork in that game, and he's constantly moving backwards.
And the knee is a real problem right now. I mean, he's really been dialed back in practice. He's not. I mean, Rick's not come out and said a lot about it publicly, but I don't know if that's the reason that they had such a hard time last night. I mean, that's not Fulkerson's game. I mean, I don't. If you get him 20 feet away from the basket trying to hedge out on Mason Jones, that's a tough ask for Fulke. I mean, maybe they need to go back and look at how they're defending it. I don't know, but any lead guard in the SEC is a tough matchup for Vescovi right now.
Yeah, no question. And of course, Bowden having the foul trouble that he was dealing with that probably limited some things he could do defensively. But Kentucky, Auburn, Florida. I mean, those three teams are going to play high ball screen until Tennessee deals with it better, don't you think?
Sure, absolutely they are.
I mean, Florida runs a lot of high ball screen stuff,
and Rick likes to switch everything.
Right.
He feels like he feels like he has some lineups where he can do that. And Fulke does move pretty well for a 5, but again, 20 feet from the basket, you can put him in no man's land.
I just think that they're going to have to figure out a better way to handle that and to find an answer to that down the stretch if they're going to have a chance.
They're not going to have it.
I agree.
3 games left until the offseason.
I'm just saying if they're going to have a chance to be.
I'm sorry.
To be in these games defensively for a team that's been a good defensive team all year long.
I mean that's
okay. So right now that's an area where they're getting
opponents
exposed.
have figured something out.
Right. And what they figured out is the high ball screen because that's been the most effective.
Tennessee, not just and even if you just look at conference games, you throw non-conference out, Tennessee's been the best defensive team in the league in terms of, and part of that's pace of play. They don't play real fast, but they're not Virginia by any means, and they were giving up 62 points a game before last night, and Arkansas tied Mississippi State for the most anybody's gotten, 86 points, and. A lot of that was the high ball screen. Arkansas also scored 25 points off turnovers.
Yeah, 18 in the first half, which was a huge factor in that game as well. Obviously, Florida comes to town. It's a Florida team that started to figure it out. You've been talking about Florida for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, coming together. Looks like they've figured it out. They took care of business against LSU solidly, in my opinion, in the NCAA tournament field at this point. And I think a lot of people will put odds on them, Rob, to have a chance to win the SEC tournament with the way they're playing right now.
I think they may be playing better than anybody right now. Just and they lost at Rupp, but if Emmanuel quickly doesn't get hot and drop in 3 or 4 3-pointers in a few minutes in the second half, I think Florida is, and they were still in great position to win that game with 2 minutes left. So, I think they're clicking, and they need wins. They need to pile up wins to improve their seeding to make sure that they get one of the double byes in Nashville. I don't like Tennessee's chances any of these next 3 games at all. I mean, if they're going to win one, I would think Auburn is their best chance at home in the finale, and I don't like their chances there.
What do you make of the national people talking about this league deserving 5-6 teams in the tournament?
No, not at all.
I mean, am I missing something with the league?
But I think all that. I mean, I agree that I don't see them getting in 5 or 6, but I think that just speaks more to the national landscape of how down this college basketball season is.
Yeah, Big 12's not great.
That there is just not a dominant. Not only is there not a dominant, there's not even a collection of 3 or 4 teams that are like, all right, that's who you lay your money on in the tournament. I mean, I really think this is. You talk about parity and how wild, how crazy March Madness can be. I think it's as open as it's probably been in a long time. Heading into March now because there are just not a lot of good teams. The Pac-12 is like raising a banner because they're having like their best season in like 4 or 5 years because they may get like 4 teams in the tournament and they've been getting like 2.
Right.
So it's. I just think it's a weird college basketball season. A team like South Carolina or Mississippi State may end up backing themselves into a bid if they have a good showing in Nashville.
I think Mississippi State's got the best chance. I think after last night, or after they beat Alabama, I want to say they've got 17 wins with 3 games left. I mean, I think they, SEC has 4 locks: Kentucky, Auburn, LSU, Florida. After that, I mean,
after that, you think it's South Carolina, Mississippi State, Alabama,
Arkansas,
Biden for a fifth spot.
One of those. I mean, I think Mississippi State has by far the best chance. I think South Carolina, Alabama hurt themselves by losing at Mississippi State the other night, and Arkansas I think has to win. I'm not sure what the rest of their, what their final 3 games are, but they're 6-9 in the league. After last night, maybe the committee looks at them not having Isaiah Joe and going 0-5. Yeah, I don't know. But to me, it's Mississippi State or kind of bust if it started today.
Yeah, I would hope that some mid-majors get an opportunity as an at-large. If there's ever a year,
one would think this would be the year that they would have a better showing.
I mean, Steve Forbes up in Johnson City has 4 losses on the regular season and a road win at LSU. I mean, if they were to stumble next week in the Southern Conference tournament, I would think they deserve that one.
To me, they're more deserving of an at-large than a fifth SEC team.
Than Alabama or South Carolina, who lost to Stetson and Boston University.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way. We'll see how the committee views it, but I'm with you, Jesse. I think this is going to be as wide open of a national tournament as maybe we've ever seen.
The eyeballs, I think, are going to be interesting too. I mean, the ratings are always going to be good, but so many people also like to watch the tournament for the stars and for the guys that are supposed to be the future in the NBA, the Zions and these kind of guys. You go look at NBA mock drafts. There's not anybody in the top 10 except for the one kid at St. Joe's, not St. Joe's. The Dayton school, the Dayton kid. That's like a top 10 because they're either foreigners or it's like Anthony Jordan that's not going to make it at Georgia, Wiseman who's not playing, or Lonzo Ball and a couple other guys. They're brothers that are playing over in Australia and now sitting out. I mean, it's crazy. Just this is a really weird college basketball season.
Well, and I think it's the question is it going to get back to anything other than is this going to become the new norm for college basketball? I think
maybe, but I mean, we're just a year removed from a really
absolutely
crazy,
where you had a bunch of high-end talent and all that stuff. So it's probably cyclical. I mean, you had a couple key injuries that messed with some stuff, and a couple lottery picks that went to teams that aren't going to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the best players. Georgia, North Carolina's got a really good player. Who's been battling injuries. So yeah, funky year.
Yeah, it is definitely that. For Tennessee, it's about what they got left in the tank. What do they have at home against Florida, who comes to town this weekend to take home balls.
There'll be several kids in this week. I mean, like the season's fizzling out, but recruiting is. I mean, everybody knows what's on the way. Going to be a pretty big weekend. Jabari Smith, number 5 player in the country from down in Atlanta. Unfortunately for him, lost in the state playoffs last night to Walker Kessler and company in a 2-point game. We had our Brant Packer, Volquest.com correspondent, was keeping me informed of what was going on at the game.
What's his eval? I mean, the Packer family knows a little bit about basketball, right? I don't know if Brant does.
He's
but
a
his dad does.
6'9" shot maker.
Is Brant on board with him?
Brant's on board.
Okay,
he's on board.
He's got the Brant Packer seal of approval.
So, but 6'9" shot maker, thin. Got to get stronger. But he number 5 ranked player in the country. He's a junior. He'll be in town this weekend with his family. That's a very big visit. Also expected in not as Sterling Henderson, also from Atlanta. Maybe expected in point guard from down in Atlanta, big time guy. And B.J. Edwards, Catholic kid. Maybe a conflict with a game this weekend. Not sure about that. But if not, he will be in over the weekend.
All
and
right.
One name I haven't mentioned yet much in the 2021 class, but we need to keep an eye on, is Musa Cece from Memphis, 6'11", guy that Tennessee has kind of picked it up on. He's got a game this weekend at Grace Christian, so probably not going to be able to. I think it's a 4:00 game. Tennessee would love to get him on campus. Not sure it'll work out, but keep an eye on that one. 6'11", guy that the Vols have recently.
So he's in town playing Grace.
He's in town playing Grace, but the way Tennessee will probably be able to, depending on what time the Florida game gets over. I'd say there'll be a coach probably show up for the second half, but not sure that there's a competition rule, right? If you're playing,
You can't talk to him prior to. You can't talk to him prior to. You can talk to him after the game.
but he can't make a visit if he's here.
After the game.
After
the game, I think he's free to go wherever he
Okay,
wants
but
to go.
anyway, keep an eye on Cisse and
Can't do anything on the front end.
And
before
Jabari
the conference.
Smith, big time talent, will be in the gym Saturday.
All right. So, interesting note there to keep an eye on. And of course, for the current, this current class, still potential maybe if something
somebody's
opens
gotta
up
leave, but
for a grad transfer
also-
or a big man.
I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. And again, I hate to speculate about transfers, but if you're just being honest,
Well, it's the world we live in. I'm not going to say names, but the fact that somebody left.
It's going to be really crowded on the perimeter next year. Josiah back, Jaden Springer here, Keon Johnson here, Santiago Vescovi here. I mean, that's 4 dudes who are going to take up a ton of minutes.
Victor Bailey.
Victor Bailey's going to get eligible, 5, and is going to play. I mean, probably. I think him and Santiago probably eat up the minutes at point guard, even though Bailey's not a true point. And it's going to be really crowded. If I'm going to be a 5th-year senior that plays on the perimeter and is not getting a lot of minutes now, I might be looking around.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that after this season's over and things move forward there. We'll keep you up to date on the recruiting end and obviously finish out this basketball season as Tennessee takes on Florida tomorrow at Thompson-Boling Arena. Let's jump to the world of football, and you're a little over a week and a half away from the start of spring practice for Tennessee. I found this interesting. And Jesse, I know you're going to have some stories on this. We're going to have some stuff on this moving forward. But I saw a couple of stories out there about, quarterbacks in the SEC who are the best and that type of thing. And the transfers are getting all the love as one would expect. You got the Costello kid coming into Mississippi State into what Mike Leach likes to do from Stanford. A lot of people think he's going to put up huge numbers. You got the Newman kid going into Georgia. Everybody thinks he's going to put in big numbers. It's an odd year for quarterbacks in the SEC in general. When you're talking about transfers, maybe the 2 best players, Kelly Mond may be the 3rd best quarterback in the SEC. Vastly different from a year ago when you had Fromm and you had Tua, and then obviously you had Small Hands Burrow come out of nowhere, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of folks seem to think that.
You knew he was going to get picked apart at the NFL Combine,
Oh, sure.
right?
He was Jesus this past year.
You knew they were going to pick everything apart about him, so that's the best thing that they found. Is his hands
and
out.
the best thing, his retort to it was fantastic. So, but for the 2020 season, I mean, the fact that you're arguing whether it's Kellen Mond or Trask, who might be the best returning quarterback to the league, it kind of speaks volumes
of what a drop off
of where it's at. That's not to say that the league doesn't have some guys with high upside, like Bo Nix. What can he become at Auburn in year 2? I'm kind of curious to see how a guy like Costello fits in Leach's system. I think that's going to be interesting. For Tennessee, JG notably has found himself in the middle or kind of lower half on a lot of those lists, and I don't think that's particularly surprising. I mean, I think right now JG kind of is what he is. The idea that maybe some magical light is going to turn on. I don't see it. Now, that's not to say that he can't improve. That's not to say this is not a huge spring. I have a piece coming out about, will probably come out early next week, maybe perhaps this weekend, whenever we decide to pull the trigger on it. But the quarterback room is going to be pretty fascinating this spring, because the assumption is that JG, is the presumed starter until he isn't, because Pruitt made it known that was clearly, at least last season, the guy he most trusted.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, a year ago, and anybody jump in here as well, so it was not just directed to Jesse. A year ago, Jeremy Pruitt in the offseason, after his first year never referencing his name, comes out and they talk about having cobbler or whatever they had at the house and breaking bread and getting to know each other. And Jeremy Pruitt says in the summer, hey, JG's our guy. Okay, he is our guy. And it made sense because you had freshmen coming in and the whole 9 yards. Fast forward a year, if you're Jeremy Pruitt, how do you manage that part of it? Not the reps, okay, because we know they're going to, platoon practice, all these, they're going to equal out reps early on, and then it'll whittle itself down.
See, I don't even know how you do that.
From a public
not
standpoint,
with 5 guys.
From a publicity standpoint, how do you do it? How do you handle it?
Well, I think the way he's going to handle it publicly is, and I pulled the quote from my piece, so I'm just going to synthesize it here. But it's what he said after the bowl game, which is, this is a results-based business, and if you're getting it done, you're getting it done. If you're not, we'll look somewhere else. And that was in a question to JG. Started the game, was terrible against Indiana. They clearly didn't like what they saw from Maurer, so they put JG back in, and he performed in the fourth quarter. I think he was like 7 for 11 for like 95 yards, and he helped, kind of spur the comeback. I think he's going to take that same approach into the spring, into the fall, through the summer. My guess here is that as we sit here, just before March starts, I think if Jarrett Garantano loses the job in 2020, it's because he lost the job, not because Harrison Bailey, who everyone I know is very excited about, or Brian Maurer go out and wins the job.
How would JG's? All of us, JG's.
You agree or disagree with that?
How would you? I don't disagree that.
You think someone else is going to be? I don't, because I think JG's going to. I think he was going to lose the job.
I think he starts
versus someone else beating him out for it.
I agree with this, and I'm interested to see how does Harrison do this spring, because if Harrison does solid this spring and shows promise and flashes, I think they lose at least one of the combination of Strout and Maurer. I don't know if they don't lose both.
I
mean, quarterback is going to be a position where it's easy to bounce.
No, I think what the room looks like on March 10th or whatever they start spring practice is not going to be the same what it looks like on May 10th.
I will be the first to say it's not fair the pressure put on Harrison Bailey or kids like that. I mean, I equate it to Josiah James. He was a 5-star, and as Rob has pointed out numerous times, not all 5 stars are created equal. But he's just not been ready. That's not saying Harrison won't be ready, but I mean, history tells you he's probably not going to be. But can he be serviceable if they had to turn to him? If he is that, then I think those other guys bounce. Because I mean, Maurer, listen, the mistakes Maurer was making in games 11, 12, and 13 is different than the mistakes he was making in games 3, 4, and 5. Because I think in 11, 12, and 13, you're not really a freshman anymore. You went through spring practice. You went through summer workouts. You went through fall, all the games. At that point, you can't make the same mistakes. That's what I'm saying. Like, he was making the routinely throwing into double and triple coverage and just not making the right reads. And that's why, they would get frustrated with Jarrett and put him in, and then they're like, oh, this is worse, jerking back out.
Well, and that's why I think part of the difficulty this spring for Tennessee, when you have more scholarship quarterbacks that you're looking to get reps than you do scholarship inside linebackers, how you divvy up these snaps.
It's true.
It's true. This is a real statement. I mean, it's a joke, but it's true. How you divvy up snaps is going to be fascinating, because for Jarrett to take that step, this is, it's going to be bandied about a lot, and I think it is true. This is the first offseason of his career. He's going to be in the same system and have the same coach. So one would expect him to make some sort of growth there. But for him to improve his anticipation, for him to understand the playbook better, that takes reps. You're not seeding snaps like he did late last fall, where Maurer and Strout start getting more work. So then there's going to be a trickle-down effect to where a guy like Brian Maurer, who did start games a year ago, who did flash at least enough that they thought, hey, we'll give you a shot. Does he get as many opportunities in practice when you're still having to give Harrison opportunities?
He's got to be
significantly
better this
you're
spring.
having to you promised Jimmy Holiday a chance to be a quarterback, not just be a Wildcat quarterback. And he needs work to be a quarterback. So how they do it is going to be pretty crazy.
Expectations is if he's contributing, it's as a Wildcat quarterback. But you're right. He needs the reps to continue to develop.
But you're also in a world where guys are bouncing. So if you don't want Jimmy Holiday to go, well, they never really gave me a shot.
Yeah, and I have this in my piece. You know how many Wildcat snaps they took a year ago?
6. I don't know. Whatever. Tell me.
16 the whole season.
So I mean.
By the way, I think if you really want to get JG to really take a step in the right direction, you got to ditch the cobbler hubs and you got to bring back the chip dip. I mean, the chip dip was a big player a couple years ago.
Let me ask this. You're over here making fun of me, and you come out with that. You drop that out. You're laughing at me about stuff, and you drop that. Come on, man.
The chip dip of the week.
Here, let me ask this though, from the standpoint of reps, Rob. I mean, I agree that JG needs reps, but is there a point in time where, as a coach, you say he is what he is? And I'm not saying you don't give him reps, but it is a little bit more of an equal rep, because how much better is he going to get with more reps, given he's 4 years into his career?
I don't think so. I think he's still a 22-year-old kid. I mean, guys develop once they get to the pros. I mean, I don't think that at all. I mean, I think reps I think guys at that age, can certainly get better. I'm with Jen. I don't see how they're going to get it. I don't see how there's enough reps.
There's also the factor that you're trying to build a rapport with a brand new wide receiver room.
Yep, I agree with that too. I just think it's good. I mean, I think there's two levels to this that are really kind of an interesting watch over the course of the next 6 weeks or so. One is just from a pure physical standpoint, how they manage the reps. Who do they give them to? And then I think there's the other side of it of how do they manage the mentality of the kids. Do you declare it a wide open competition? We're not going to declare anything. Do you come out and say, coming out of spring, that Jared's the front runner or Jared's the starter? Or are you going to bracket 5 guys and say everybody's, or are you just not going to talk about anybody specifically? I think, because we had 2 extremes in the first 2 years. You had the first year where Jeremy Pruitt, we know where he was with Jared. Jared drove him crazy. And then he comes out in year 2 and is like, well, this is the best option we've got because everybody else is a freshman. Jim Chaney's here. We've talked about it. I'm going to declare him the guy. Before he ever takes a snap in competition under Jim Chaney, he is the guy. And then that didn't work out real well either, because he got bounced back and forth, and we all know what happened to him last season. But he did pull him out of the fire on several occasions. So now the question is, what do you declare? Do you declare anything heading into the offseason, coming out of spring, to help continue to build that rapport with a bunch of receivers that are coming this summer to start working?
I mean,
with?
it will be the storyline of camp. I mean, you're thinking about when Jeremy was here year 1, Dormandy decided to transfer in early January. Jarrett was the only scholarship quarterback on the roster.
Right, who was not a declared starter at that point.
And they were flying in Keller Chris to come watch practice.
Yes. And now they've got more scholarship quarterbacks.
And I haven't gone and cross-checked every team, but maybe on one hand is there you could count the amount of teams in the country that have 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah,
almost.
it's a ton, that's for sure. So that's one storyline. We got plenty of other spring storylines coming about that we will discuss and that we will look into as Tennessee gets ready to start spring practice. Of course, we get a chance to see what this staff looks like, how this staff goes to work with Coach Brumball and Shelton Felton and Joe Ossovet and, of course, Jay Graham and all those things that are going on at this point. So we'll have plenty of coverage of that, plenty of coverage leading up to the start of spring practice as well. Hey, you made an investment into your HVAC system. Now keep it running with Blue Water Climate Control's smooth sailing service plan. Blue Water offers their clients seasonal inspections, repair discounts, and annual tune-ups for one low annual price or low automatic monthly payments. The smooth sailing service plan includes semi-annual seasonal inspections to perform routine checks, 10% off parts and labor on all HVAC repairs, an annual 40-point diagnostic test of your entire heating and air system, including ductwork, prioritized response to air conditioning repair and maintenance needs, never pay overtime fees for that weekend work or after-hour emergencies, and there's a loyalty plan where you can accrue $100 a year towards a replacement heating and air system. Call today and they'll get you a quote over the phone. Don't forget to mention Volquest. You'll get a discount. So call Blue Water Climate Control at 865-299-2290. That's 865-299-2290 for Blue Water Climate Control. You can check them out online for more details on their smooth sailing service plan. I mentioned Austin. New coaches, we want to see what they look like on the, how they work on the practice field. That's part of this spring that will be interesting. There's a lot of kids who want to see what these guys look like coaching on spring practice. So you'll see some of those guys coming to town for spring ball. But over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're seeing some early returns on Joe Osvet and Jay Graham in terms of guys that look like they're going to come on campus. I think the fact that Peyton Page tweeted out on Thursday that he's coming to campus, and we thought that might happen. You had mentioned that earlier. The fact that he's tweeted out publicly right now he's scheduled to be here is a huge deal for Tennessee. Credit to Jay Graham to get him here. Big for him to start to get to know Jimmy Brumbaugh. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal too because everybody's kind of, I won't say pinned him in for Clemson, but a lot of people started to pencil him in for Clemson. Clemson loves to, take kids off the board early. And if they don't get off the board early, then Clemson moves on to somebody that will because they like to have that recruiting class done. So the longer Tennessee can make Peyton Page think, the better chance I think Tennessee's got here. The longer this goes versus ultimately you want to get a kid in as quick as you can. But I think in this instance with Peyton, the longer it goes, the better for Tennessee. And you're right. I mean, Tennessee's up to have several North Carolina kids here next weekend. Travali Price, the defensive end. Obviously, the Wright kid, the running back, it's kind of burst onto the scene, state track champion in North Carolina. Kamen Marley, who's a top 100 player on Rivals, is said to be here. And of course, also Peyton Page, and then the really good kid out of Havelock in North Carolina as well. So Tennessee set up to have those guys. Jeremiah Williams will be here on Sunday. Would kind of expect guys like Junior Colston to try to stop in on Sunday too. They're going to be playing that 7-on-7 tournament up in Gatlinburg. Now some of those teams ended up not making it in. Miller Moss being one of them. The J3M team's not coming, so that means Turntine, Dallin Hayden, all those guys are not going to be in Gatlinburg this weekend, so they won't be over here on Sunday. And then the team out of Alabama as well, Southern Express. So it's maybe not as big a Sunday as many had thought, but a lot of those teams kind of backed out because it's not going to be as warm up in Gatlinburg on Saturday and Sunday for that 7-on-7.
AP, quit messing around. I need some Zach Evans juice. Stop messing around, AP.
I'm interested to see if he takes this trip. I mean, I've got some people telling me that it's not a lock that he goes down to Gainesville.
Well, first of all, would anybody be stunned if he didn't?
No, correct.
I mean, as much as you would not be stunned if he does, you would not be stunned if he didn't, right?
I got stopped by a Volquester out to eat 2 nights ago, and I was like, man, I'm not leaning any which way with this kid because the moment
I said, give me the inside juice, Ape.
But I'm not so sure he takes that trip to Florida. If he does, obviously they got a shot. But if not, then out of the teams left, I kind of like Tennessee. I mean, I'm not sure he wants to go to Ole Miss. A&M, everybody around him is telling him not to go there. They've obviously hired Tommy Robinson.
Is that a swing factor?
I don't know if it's a swing factor. I don't think it hurts A&M's chances, that's for sure. But I'm not.
But what happened with LSU? Was that a Tommy Robinson thing that he wasn't no longer interested in LSU, or was that?
I think that
LSU was, hey, we're not going to do anything with you. We're moving on type
I think
deal.
That was
we're moving on type
LSU
deal.
potentially contacted him after he was committed to Georgia,
or after he signed with Georgia.
Yeah, signed with Georgia.
Okay,
and knew he had signed with Georgia.
Okay, so they're
because he was in the. Remember now, he was in that database. Of course, Tennessee did the same thing with Jay Hardy. I don't know
that they contact. I mean,
I mean,
They went to see him, but Jay didn't talk to him.
Yeah, that's right. He avoided them.
Yeah, he avoided him big time. So
You're saying LSU eliminated themselves?
I think they did. I'm not sure that Tommy Robinson eliminated himself.
No, I'm just talking about
just LSU.
because of illegal.
But a lot of people
contact.
close to Evans say, "Get away, get out of Houston, get out of the A&M area." That a lot of people around him are suggesting to him that it would be better off for him to get away from home.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which is why A&M's kind of always been there, but they've never been a real factor. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense when you think about it. I mean, they're literally the hometown school. They're an hour away.
I mean, that's the story of the documentary. It's Zach Evans calling the recruitment that doesn't make much
They're not an hour away if Paul Fortenberry's driving you and he was not aware that there are toll roads in Texas. Shout out to Fortenberry, back road Fortenberry.
anything
Paul
anything to avoid a 50-cent toll. So you won't be surprised if he visits Florida or doesn't. I mean, everybody's assumption is that he's going to visit.
Yeah, everybody's
Florida.
assumption is he's going to.
And the depth chart down there looks like that would probably make the most sense, almost.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, again, when you look at it, nothing makes sense about this.
No, exactly.
I say all that, and he's going to end up signing out of left field with.
Any chance he shows up on
the junior college that the running back from Friday Night Lights went to?
Any chance he shows up in the XFL this weekend, starting for the Houston team?
I mean, does he show up unofficially somewhere?
I don't think so.
No unofficial trip to Oxford or to A&M for spring practice, or.
I mean, you can't rule it out, but I mean, at this point, I'm going to lean no.
But you do think he may take? Do you think he will take the fifth visit somewhere?
I do.
You think he'll take a fifth, whether it's Florida or Oregon or somewhere? You think he will take his fifth visit?
I think Zach Evans gets on a plane and goes visit somewhere.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure it's Florida.
Right. You think he'll take the fifth regardless, or you think there's a chance he doesn't?
I don't pretend to know. I mean, I've got people telling me one thing.
Sure.
I mean, it changes literally by the day.
Yeah, or by the hour in some cases.
I'll be real honest, and I want to give the general's quarters a lot of credit here. They have not really hounded us on Zach Evans. They've been very, very wise to know there's just not much out there, and that this whole month of February has been dead. They could have pounded us every day, and they really haven't.
Well, but it will build up as the question will be: does he get on the plane to go to games?
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
For the 20th,
Once we
right?
get to a movement,
Because but everybody knew. I think everybody realized nothing was going to happen until he makes the decision.
But I mean, they've also had a lot of really good basketball and a modestly paid head coach to take their attention.
Yeah, no timeouts. I think the only person that's asking about Zach Evans is Bassmaster Ball, and he asks about everything. So,
but much of the discussion has been about timeouts. All right, give me something else on the recruiting front.
Dietrich Pennington. I think Tennessee's right there with Georgia. Alabama to me would be kind of the third team there. A lot of people say Clemson, but the person I talked to says Clemson's not as in as a lot of people think there. The state of Tennessee is just kind of weird this year. There's not as many top end guys, and they're all kind of just spread out. I mean, you got the two kids at Bradley, Tennessee's recruited. You got a couple kids in Middle Tennessee like Turntime, William Griffin, Junior Colson. You got obviously Hudson Wolf, and then Dietrich Pennington, and we'll see who else emerges. There's always somebody that comes and camps well and does those type of things.
It's really down in Memphis this year, compared to the last
2021 is down. 2022 will be much better, in the state and in Memphis. So,
any chance Tennessee gets some pull in the West Coast? I mean, I'm not going to say it feels like early 2000s because obviously they landed Clawsons and then the Clawsons helped them recruit out there. But but Southern Cal's not very good. That doesn't look like that's going to end very well out there. UCLA's been a struggle. You got Oregon, okay, who's really good, but the rest of the West Coast is kind of. I mean, you got a transition going on in Washington with a new coach.
There's a running back out there Tennessee likes.
I'm just seeing them
Miller
offer
Moss
some.
is obviously the Nicholas Brumbaugh offered the big lineman.
Right. So any chance they get a little traction? I know they got Henry T a year ago, but
it's all about getting those kids to campus. I mean,
right.
Potentially, one of the schools that's actually done a pretty good job the last two cycles. Of taking advantage of the down teams of California and Southern Cal and UCLA is Arizona State. Yeah. I mean, Antonio Pierce and some of those guys have gone in, and now Oklahoma just hired one of Arizona State's best recruiters for that very reason to get into Southern California, so that the Sooners can kind of expand their reach. So I would not be surprised if Tennessee continues to make a run in California, but it's much easier to even get to Arizona than it is to get to Tennessee.
It's crazy to think. I mean, crazy to think. I mean, when you really start that, you had the Clausens, Dante Stallworth, Kevin Burnett, Kevin Simon, the JUCO kids.
Don't forget about the best player out of all of them, Ontario Smith.
Ontario Smith. I mean, he was a huge get.
Unbelievable talent. He just couldn't stay out of trouble.
You had the JUCO kids, Julian Battle, Jabril Wilson, Tawena. I mean, it was. I mean, I don't know if it was exactly a pipeline, but it was a steady trickle.
Yeah, they certainly feasted on them and had a lot of success. I think to get a West Coast kid that far, A, you got to get them on campus, and B, I think you have to be having success.
Yeah.
You have to be winning.
Yeah, Tennessee was rolling.
Right. I don't know that they're coming to a lot of 6, 7, 8 win football teams. They got to be coming to a school that's got a legit shot to get in the playoff, or to compete for a championship, and that was certainly the case back when Tennessee was rolling it on the West Coast. All right, so plenty of stuff to talk about on the GQ. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about basketball, recruiting, get you ready for spring practice, all those things on the General's Quarters, and we'll talk to you next week again on the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast. For Rob Lewis, Austin Price, and Jesse Simonton, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, everybody.